Thanks everyone for joining the session. And today we are going to talk about Boomi platform capabilities and API management capabilities. Okay. So first, let me start with my introduction part. So basically, I'm working as a competency lead at a EPAM system. I'm a MuleSoft and Boomi certified. I'm a delivery champion and the go-to-market champion, having the experience with the multiple integration platform, which include MuleSoft, Boomi, Beanstalk, cloud like AWS, Spring Boot, Apache Camel, and other integration platform. Yeah, that's a short introduction about me. And let me go through the agenda. So we already have an introduction. I will talk about Boomi platform, a Boomi Atom Cloud, Atom and the molecules. So these are the few deployment options or runtime options provided by a Boomi. And I will also talk about a Boomi Private Atom Cloud and Boomi API management. So we will going to discuss what are the multiple runtime options provided by the by the Boomi, and what are the limitations for those runtime options basically, and what are the benefits for those runtime options. Okay, so let me go back to my next slide. Okay, so first, what is a Boomi? A Boomi is like a multi-tenant integration platform as a service, and basically that connects a data and the application, which can be located anywhere, can be on the cloud, can be on premises, can be in the corporate data center. So basically, Boomi integrates the systems, application, and your data basically. And those data or those application can be located anywhere. For example, you have one system called Salesforce, you may have other system called NetSuite. If you want to have an integration between those two systems, so you can use the Boomi platform. And Boomi is a multi-tenant integration platform as a service. It's a no-code or low-code integration platform. Generally, like, you don't have to write too much of the code. I think you can achieve a lot of integration without any code, without writing single line of a code. You can do all configuration and you can achieve the integration very quickly. Boomi support cloud as well as on-premises deployment model. So generally, Boomi provide some kind of managed service runtime plane, as well as you can set up a Boomi on your local environment or on your corporate data center. Boomi provides something called Atom Sphere. Basically, it's a kind of a graphical user interface where you can manage your complete a Boomi platform, where you can write a Boomi processes, right? Where you can do kind of Boomi process executions, those kind of things. And even it is kind of control plane for you. Basically, it's a control plane from where you are controlling your complete Boomi environment, Boomi processes, everything related to Boomi. You are managing from the Atom Sphere basically. Boomi can be used on the cloud, on premise, and there's a hybrid option. So you can use the Boomi in the hybrid mode also. So basically, in case if you want to connect all the SaaS based application, in such cases you can use the Boomi provided integration platform as a service or managed service. Or in case if you want to connect on the local resources which is behind the firewall, right, which cannot be accessed over the internet, in such cases you can set up the Boomi on your local environment. So this is a kind of hybrid approach. So what are the various benefits provided by Boomi? So there are few benefits. So generally, Boomi has been considered as a no code or very low code platform. So so it will definitely reduce your development cost, as well as it reduce the maintenance and the operation cost in case if you are using the Boomi cloud-based integration. So basically, you don't have to manage the atoms and all those things. So that will be automatically managed by Boomi basically. So or upgradation, patching, in case scalability, high availability, everything will be taken care by the Boomi. It's a no code, low code platform integration. So as you are aware, Boomi has been ranked, ranked a leader in the Gartner enterprise integration platform as a service for last 8 years. So Boomi is the leader there. It's one of the best cloud native platform. It provides more than 200 plus connector to connect any system. It can be SaaS based system, it can be any database, or it can be any NoSQL database, it can be disk, it can be SFTP. So Boomi provide n number of connectors basically. It's a unified platform. So you can find everything on the single platform, which is known as Atom Sphere basically. So on Atom Sphere, you can find your integration, you can find your API management, you can find your master data management, you can find your flows, everything on the single platform. As I mentioned, it will definitely reduce the development time, and you can do the integration at a lightning speed because of the low code. And it's also support the distributed architecture. So generally, like, so you can set up a Boomi anywhere basically on any environment. As I discussed, it can be local, it can be on premises, it can be on the cloud, and even you can make use of the hybrid option. So there are four important options, and which is very important to understand, provided by the Boomi. So generally, these are nothing, these are the runtime. So one is the Boomi Atom Cloud. So Boomi Atom Cloud, it's again a managed service. It's a completely managed by a Boomi, and you don't have to worry about any scalability, high availability, and patching, upgradation. So everything will be taken care by the Boomi. Then it comes to the local Atom. So local atoms can be set up on your private cloud or public cloud, or it can be on your corporate data center. Then there's something called molecules also. So in case, like, when you are setting up your atoms on your on premises, if you want to achieve the high availability, to ensure the high workloads, right? So you can make use of the molecules. Then the last options comes as a Boomi Private Cloud. So if you don't want to use the multi-tenant platform, so basically if you are using the Boomi Atom Cloud, in such cases, multiple tenants, right, will be using the same Atom Cloud, right? It doesn't mean like the data will be shared across the tenant, but they are using the same Atom Cloud. But in case if you want your own Atom Cloud, right, where like your organization may be having sub-organization, and those 3 or 4 sub-organizations want to use their own Atom Cloud, right? In such cases, you can go with the Boomi Private Atom Cloud, where Boomi, with the help of Boomi, you can set up your Atom Cloud on your infrastructure, or it can be on any cloud, basically, any cloud provider, maybe AWS, Azure, wherever you want. Okay, let's deep dive into each of the options. The first come Boomi Atom Cloud. So as I mentioned, it is the managed service, and it is located in the multiple regions. It's in North America, Asia Pacific, in Europe regions. So in Asia Pacific, you can find the Boomi Atom Cloud in the Singapore, or there are other locations also. In North America, you can find in America, Canada is multiple location. Whereas in Europe, you can find in UK and other location. Boomi Atom Cloud is a multi-tenant, as I mentioned. So we same Atom Cloud shared by multiple tenants of the Boomi basically. So Boomi generally provide 2 types of Atom Cloud. So one is the test Atom Cloud, and one is for the production. So you have a separate for the production and separate Atom Cloud for your test environment. So Atom Cloud is nothing. It consists of 1 or more cloud molecules. Basically, it's nothing. It's a group of molecules. Those acting as a single unit basically. So basically, molecule is nothing. It's a group of node basically. Like you can have a computer 1 and you can computer, and that node 1 and node 2 is sharing the data. Sharing the data, and they both nodes are clustered in one molecule. Such multiple molecules make a one Atom Cloud basically, right? So whenever Atom Cloud provide its own URL. So whenever you want to send any HTTP request, you want to send that HTTP request to the URL provided by the Atom Cloud, and the Atom Cloud will forward the request to any available molecule or any available nodes. So in simple word, Atom Cloud is nothing. It's a group of molecules that act as a single unit basically, right? That group together to form an Atom Cloud. Whereas a molecule is nothing. It's a group of node, right, to form a molecule basically, right? So that is that. We will discuss more about a molecule in upcoming slides. So what are the limitations provided by Atom Cloud? So one of the biggest limitation I can see, when you are deploying or when you are running your Boomi processes on the Boomi Atom Cloud, right, it can only connect a SaaS based application or the applications which is available over the internet or which is public basically. It is not able to connect any resources or any system which is behind the firewall basically. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you have any resources or any system located on your on premise, you will not able to connect with the Boomi Atom Cloud. And even Boomi Atom Cloud doesn't provide any utility where like you can create the VPN or VPN connections or any other kind of direct connect. We don't have such kind of options to access the on-premise or corporate data center resource. So you have options. You have to go with a local atom in case if you want to connect the resources which is behind the firewall. You can run a 50 process simultaneously in the production. So you cannot go with the more than 50 processes running at a time. You can just run a 50 processes simultaneously in the production. And the other limitation is like, it doesn't matter like, what kind of license you have, what kind of account you have. It will share the same server and the JVM configuration, which is up to 512 MB. Maximum number of parallel thread, it cannot be more than 10, right? And account can use like, Boomi Atom Cloud to process up to 1 GB of a data, per month, basically per month. In case if you want to process additional data, you need to connect with the Boomi and you need to, increase those limit for your accounts, basically. Right? Any question, Ivan?
Not so far, but if we make a pause, maybe you'll be able to explain what kind of standard protocol Boomi Atom can support.
It's a HTTP, right? Basically. So generally, it's a HTTP protocol.
Okay, got it. And in case if we need to establish connectivity with any database, GDBC, or what we need to do in this case?
Yeah, I will come on that. So basically, so generally, there's one of the biggest limitation with the Boomi Atom Cloud. It cannot connect to the systems or databases which is behind the firewall, which is in the corporate data center. It will not able to do that, right? So Boomi Atom Cloud can only connect a SaaS-based application or database which is available publicly. Okay, so that is the biggest limitation. So we will discuss in next slide, what we have to do if you want to connect with resources which is behind the firewall. So there's a multiple options. You can use the local atom, you can use the molecule, or you can also you can go with a private atom cloud, basically. So these are the three options.
Okay.
Or fourth options, you can go with a hybrid approach, basically.
Cool. And maybe related to this topic, the question, let's assume we'd like to do integration with Salesforce or SAP system. Does Boomi provide to us any pre-built components for this kind of communication?
Yeah, Boomi provide a connectors, basically. So like you have a SAP connectors, you have a Salesforce connectors, right? You can make use of those connectors, and even you can make use of those connector to connect those system. Apart from that, Boomi also provide some kind of predefined processes to connect the Salesforce, right? So you can go to the process library and you can find predefined processes there, and it will give some kind of initial template. It will be not your whole solution, or it will not meet your business requirement, but it provides some kind of initial template where you have to go and provide your own connection strings and all those things. Yeah.
Got it. And we have one question in chat about the hosting. Maybe not about the hosting, but I'd like to have this information as well. The question sounds, is Atomic Cloud built on top of Google Cloud?
See, I don't have that information where where it is hosted. Yeah, I think it is on AWS. I think it's on AWS.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue.
Because because we are not managing the Boomi Atom Cloud, right? It's not our responsibility. It's completely managed by Boomi. Like when it comes to scalability, when it comes to patching, high availability, disaster recovery, fault tolerance, everything will be taken care by the Boomi for you. Okay, so let me go to the next runtime option, that is the local atom. So basically, a local atom is a single tenant and the single node AtomSphere runtime engine, basically, which is installed on your corporate data center, maybe on your private cloud, or maybe on your own, like any other cloud provider like Google or maybe AWS or Azure, basically. So once you install the local atom, so you can easily connect or resources which is behind the firewall, basically, right? So those resources can be any disk, maybe any databases, maybe any other systems, right, which is not reachable over the internet. which is not a SaaS based application. So with local atom, you can connect those systems. It is known as a single tenant. The local atom is dedicated to you, unlike Boomi Atom Cloud. Basically, Boomi Atom Cloud is not dedicated to you. It can be used by a multiple tenants of the Boomi, whereas the local atom is the single tenant, and that is the dedicated to you basically. And apart from that, as I mentioned, local atom can access any resources which is behind the firewall, as well as it is able to access the resources which is over the internet, maybe SaaS based application, maybe any application which is publicly available. So that is the one thing, right? So there are few limitations comes with the local atom. So for setting up the local atom, you have to set up some kind of virtual machines, or maybe some kind of servers basically, and you will be the responsible for managing those servers. You will be responsible for managing disaster recovery, fault tolerance. Like Boomi will be not responsible for managing your infrastructure here. It will be taken care by you. You have to manage that. Boomi will be only responsible for managing this local atom. Like if you are facing any issue with local atom, you can talk with Boomi, like, I have this particular issues, I need to fix it. So Boomi will be provide a guidance suggestion on the local atom. But apart from that, the infrastructure, everything has to be managed by you yourself. Networks, infrastructure, storage, everything has to be taken care by you. Okay. There are a few limitations with atom. Atom cannot be shared on the multiple machines. Basically, atom is the standalone entity basically. So it doesn't provide any kind of high availability, and generally atom is not considered for the high performance applications, and when the volume for the application is the very high basically, right? And apart from that, like, you have to procure the server, you have to take care of all the prerequisite for procuring the servers, you have to take care of all the firewalls, and you have to take care of all the VPN connections and everything, like all the networks and storage. So these are the few limitations comes with the local atom. So here you can see the small diagram. So generally when you set up a local atom, right, so that local atom will register in your Atomsphere platform basically. It doesn't mean your data will go outside the firewall. It will not. It will only send a metadata, right? So some kind of metadata like analytics, you will see some kind of analytics data on those kind of information will be sent out from your data center. Apart from that, no other data will be go outside your corporate data center in case of local atom. Let me show some kind of demonstration, like generally. So here you can see this is my Atomsphere platform, where you have an integration, master, data hub, API management, flow. So we are talking about the integration right now. So I will just click on this particular thing, integration, and I am just trying to set up a local atom basically. So this is where you can write your processes basically. This is like, so you have a lot of components here, you have a lot of connectors, Salesforce, apart from, like, there are a lot of connectors, B2B connectors, EDI connectors. So we have a lot of connectors. So you can write your flows and everything here. But right now we are talking about the infrastructure level. So I will just go to the atom management, and right now I cannot see any atom, right? So first we will try to create a public cloud atom. So I will say new, and first I will create the environment. I can say test, and just you have to classify this environment. It can be production or test. I will just say test, and I will save it. Okay. Now I have created the environment. Now I can say new atom. So what atom I want, I will say in the cloud. So right now it's a trial version of Atomsphere platform. So it will just showing me the Singapore location. So like it support various location from US and other like various location from Europe also. So I will use the Singapore integration text cloud, and I will say test atom cloud. Okay. So here you can see, your test atom cloud is there, but it is not attached. So I think you can attach it from here. So I will just attach to test environment. So generally this atom, I attach to test environment here. So this atom is mostly used for the testing purpose only, right? So, if you want to do any kind of testing, you can use the test atom cloud. During the development phase also, you can use the test. Let me show one example here. Okay, I will go to a process library here, and I will just try to create one of the example. I will take one of the example from here. I will just say install. So as I mentioned, it provides some kind of pre-built template. So you can use the template from here, from the process library. I'll just say install. I close this. I will close this. So here you can see, connectors, different connections and everything. This is my connections. I'm a bit interested in this particular part of processes. And let me test these processes. It will get error out because I haven't made the connection, but I want to show you something. So I will say test. And in test, you can see it is listed down the atom which you have created, right? So you can use this particular Atom Cloud for testing your processes. Run test. Okay, it will definitely give an error. Just I want to show how you can test the processes, basically what you are developing using the Atom Cloud. And also we will see how we can test this particular process using the local atom. Now I will try to create a local atom. I'll go to atom management. I will say new atom. This time I will select local and select the Windows, whatever operating system you have. I will say select Windows 64-bit. Then I will say download installer. Then go to the security option and say generate token, and I will copy this. Okay. So let me go back to my, just give me a second. I'm trying to install Atom on my local machine. So let me go back to downloads, and this is my exe file. I will just try to run as an administrator. Run anyway. Okay. So you have two options. Either you can use the username and password, but I will use the token. And I have to give a name like test demo atom local. If you have any kind of firewall or anything, you can use the proxy setting. Otherwise, say next. And you have to associate the environment with this particular atom. So it will list down all the environment available on your atom sphere. I will just say test next, 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 next. So it will take some bit of time. Till that, I will just move on to next slide. So we talk about the local atom limitations also. Now we will talk about the molecule as one of the limitations. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have several questions, and if you don't mind, it's pretty close to the topic what you have already described. So the question sounds like, can local atomic be acceptable by Atomic Cloud? So if you can explain once again, let's assume we have created a service. This service, let's assume working with a database, and we would like to expose this service for external world. How it can be done?
Okay, you are talking about the local atom, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so basically, you mentioned you have created the local atom. On the local atom, you have deployed some application with the HTTP, right?
Yes.
And that particular application is connecting to some kind of databases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in such cases, you will require some kind of your own domain on the top of that particular atom, basically, right? So maybe some api.example.com, and that map to that particular server, and that api.example.com must be public, right? And so any client want to connect, and any client want to access the process which is deployed on the atom, right? So they can send the request to api.example.com. From api.example.com, the request will go to the atom. From atom, the request will get processed and it will send the response back. So you require some kind of domain entry, or some kind of even some kind of a load balancer, or which have a single server, basically.
Okay, so the answer is following. Potentially, if you'd like to expose your service which was hosted on local Atom, you can do it even without Atom in Cloud. Is it correct?
Yes. See, Atom Cloud, it's having own URL, basically, right? So, and whenever you deploy any process, right, in your local Atom, it will have its own URL, basically. So you need to do some setting at the network layer. You may require some kind of domain mapping with the server. Basically, you may require, if you are deploying your Atom in the cloud, local Atom in the AWS, you may have to do the Route 53 mapping, basically, right? So where you define the domain, and the request will come via that particular domain, and the request will be forwarded from route 53. The request will be forwarded to your local atom, right? So basically, if somebody want to connect the process which is available on the Boomi Atom Cloud, right? So Boomi Atom Cloud, it provides its own URL basically. So they have to send the request over that particular URL, URL of the Boomi Atom Cloud.
Got it. And another question, it's not about deployment, but really interesting question and related to what you have already shared. Since Boomi is not is no code or low code, there is a file configuration that can be stored in version, for example, Git repository. So how to work with the source code?
No, Boomi have its own, like, own, like whatever, whenever you're writing the code, right? So Boomi is all automatically maintaining all the revision histories and everything, right? You don't have to do anything. So let's consider you start keeping changes on your flows and everything, right? So Boomi will definitely maintain the revision copy of the previous version. In case if you want to roll back, it's just a simple, like, you just have to say, I want to roll back to this particular revision. And let's consider while you are doing the deployment, and you can see you have a revision 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can say, I just want to deploy the revision 5 or 6, basically, like that. So it having own, like, check-in, check-out. Like, we don't have to do check-in and check-out kind of thing in the Boomi basically, and we cannot move our code to the GitHub. Boomi have its own SCM process basically. So it does automatically for you basically, like, we cannot move the code from Boomi platform to the GitHub.
Okay,
so here,
got it. So by default, Boomi provides its own approach how to save the code and how to manage the code.
Let me show if I can. Yes. So rollback and everything is simpler. Here you can see the revision history. It automatically does for you. So right now I just copy. If I do start modifying something, it will say revision 2, like that. It automatically managing everything for you.
Okay, got it. But let's assume I have a paranoia and I don't believe in any cloud solution, and I'd like to have the code on my local machine. Does Boomi provide this kind of option?
No, not possible. Okay,
okay,
it's not possible. Yeah. So now I will see, like, my Atom has been installed, I think. Where is gone? Let me go back to my integration. So here you can see your local Atom also came. And if you see in your drive, maybe in some of the drive, it may program files, I think, or 86. Yeah. So here you can see, your Boomi Atom Cloud has been installed. Basically, now whatever process you will deploy on the local Atom Cloud, it will get deployed on your local, basically, right? Apart from that, like, you can go here and you can check various properties, like what is the status of your Atom, right? If you want to detach, if you want to delete, if you want to restart, even, like, you can see, you can just download the log files and everything from here. So basically the log files will be available here basically, on this particular logs folder. This is all the container logs. So we have various other things also, other configurations also. So I will not get into the deep right now. So you can download everything from here. So basically your control plane is AtomSphere, but your actual runtime plane is your local environment basically. Okay. You can do the management of your Boomi Atom Cloud from here, but at the end, your applications will be running on your local machine, on your local Atom machine. Okay. It's simple, like, now we have a 2 Atom. Let me go back to home. If I say test, it should list the local atoms also now. Yeah, it is listing the local atom. Now you can run, you can execute this process on your local atom also. Yeah, it will not going to deploy anything on your local till you don't give an instruction for the deployment, but it will try to use your local atom and run this process basically. Generally, why we want this approach? Because, like, if you have some process that you want to deploy on your local machine, on your local atom, so I will suggest go first you test this particular process with a local atom. In case if you want to deploy the cloud, such cases you use the Atom Cloud to test it. Okay, so that is some suggestions from my end. So now I will come molecule. A molecule is, it's a single tenant. It's again single tenant. Basically, whenever you are setting up the molecule, it will be for the single user or single account, basically. Okay. And it's a multi-node, basically. Unlike local atom is a single node, whereas the molecule is the multi-node atomsphere runtime engine, which is installed on your local or a corporate data center, and it can also access the resources which is behind the firewall, right? Maybe any databases, maybe any file, and if you want to perform any read or write operation into any disk, so that can be done, right? So what is the local molecule? So it's a group of node, right, which sharing the same storage, basically, right, to form a molecule, basically. So generally you deploy a molecule on node 1, node 2, node 2, and they are clustered together, and they are sharing the same data grid, basically, right? It can be any NFS or SMB disk, basically, right? So generally, so in the why we want a molecule to enable the high availability. So let's consider definitely the question will come like, how to load balance the HTTP traffic. So for load balancing the HTTP traffic, you want a third-party load balancer on the top of this, basically, on node 1, node 2, and node 3. That can be any application load balancer. In the front of application load balancer, you can put a web application firewall also, where you can enable the IP whitelisting, blacklisting, or any other, blocking rules, basically, right? So molecule is nothing. It's a multiple node that are installed on the multiple on-premises machine. And when the node has been grouped together, that is known as the molecule, and they are the clustered, basically. And generally it is suitable for the high availability for traffic distribution. It is generally used for very high workload, right? So this is where a molecule come into picture whenever you want high available network and high performance infrastructure, and you can go with the molecules, basically. You got the difference between molecules and the atom. Atom is the standalone, whereas molecule can be installed on more than one server, and they can be grouped together or they can be clustered together. So it provides us high availability, basically. So there is no single point of failure, basically. If node 1 goes down, node 2 and node 3 is still available to handle the traffic, basically. So what is the limitation? See, setting up the molecule require some kind of a good architecture, good design, and you need to procure the server. So again, infrastructures, you have to manage all the infrastructures, everything, underlying infrastructures, and everything has to be managed by you, right? It requires some high level of setup, management, and the configuration. And for molecule, you may have to pay extra cost, basically, right? So if you have a license of Atom, right, and if you want to install the molecule, you may end up in paying the extra for the molecule, basically. Now I will come to the private atom cloud. This is also an interesting topic. If anybody have any question on molecule or local atom?
Looks like not. We have several questions related to the SLA, but let's switch to this question. We'll do it later.
Yeah. So again, a private atom cloud, generally, there might be some organization they don't want to generally, they want to work in the isolated mode. They don't want to run their workload or their processes on the public atom cloud, right? In such cases, you can go with a private atom cloud, right? So the private atom cloud is a multi-tenant and a multi-molecule atom sphere runtime. So generally, the multiple tenant can be use the same private atom cloud. So let's consider you have an organization. That organization have a sub organization, right? So each organization have a sub business groups, basically, right? And each business group want to use their own some isolated infrastructure. In such cases, you can allow all the business group to use the same private atom cloud, basically, right? So that is where a private atom cloud is useful. So what is the difference between molecule and the private atom cloud? So molecule is formed. It's a group of node which form a molecule, whereas a private atom cloud, it's a group of molecules which form the atom cloud. So you can have a molecule 1, you can have a molecule 2, you can have a molecule 3, basically, and this group of molecules form a private atom cloud. And even if you want to connect your corporate data center, and if you want to create some VPN connection with any third party to access their systems, right? In such cases, you can go with a private atom cloud also, right? So private atom cloud can be used by one or more accounts. So that's the one biggest difference between a local atom and the molecule. Molecule and local atom can be used by the single account, whereas like your Boomi Atom Sphere may have a multiple accounts, like for business group one account, for business group second account. So if anybody want to use multiple account want to use the same infrastructure, they can go with a private atom cloud basically. So one or more cloud molecule installed on the multiple machine, and all molecule together form a private atom cloud. You got it? So generally private atom cloud is also get registered in your atom sphere, like local atom and the molecule. Yeah, here I can see the infrastructure cost may be high. You have to manage all the servers and everything, like all the storage network. You require any third-party load balancer to distribute the traffic amongst the multiple molecules, so those kind of things. Yeah.
If you don't mind, we have a question. So you just described kind of logical distribution between different server, and we have a question. Is Atom Cloud scalable? How about load balancing for inbound connections?
Yes, like you can set up application load balancer on the top of your molecules basically, right? So molecule is nothing, it's a made up of nodes basically, right? So you can create an application load balancer, and that application load balancer can send the traffic to molecule 1, molecule 2, and molecule 3 or molecule 4, depending on how many molecules are there basically, right? Yes. So the answer is yes, it is scalable. Whenever you want to add the additional nodes or everything, you can do it, right? It is possible. You can add the additional nodes within the molecule. That is also possible. You can apply a web application firewall in the front of application load balancer also to block the traffic from the untrusted sources. Is this answer your question?
The question initially was about not the private atom cloud, but the very first option of using, like, not the private option, but the one provided by Boomi.
Yeah, so no, you cannot do anything, right? So Boomi generally say like, so like public atom cloud is automatically scalable. So it depend on like, a number of requests coming or no. It depend on what kind of size of request coming. So it automatically scalable. You cannot set up any load balancer in the front of, a public atom cloud. It is not possible, but it is scalable and it is auto scalable. Like you don't have to do anything for that.
Okay, thank you.
And Jitendra, one additional question. So you was mentioned that you need to have a load balancer between different molecule. The question, is it a part of Dell Boomi platform, or you need to install third-party component for the load balancing?
It's a third-party component. Yeah, in setting up private atom cloud, we can take the help from the Boomi, right? Boomi will help us to set up a private atom cloud, but we have to choose, like all the infrastructure components needs to be chosen by us. It will be our, like, where we want to set up. That is our decision, right? So whether we want to set up on AWS, or whether we want to set up on Google, whether we want to set up on Azure, or whether we want to set up on some corporate data, that is our decision basically. But Boomi provide all kind of support to set up that particular thing. Yeah, you will require a third-party load balancer. That is also, we need to decide. It can be AWS application load balancer. It can be any other cloud load balancer basically.
Got it. Thank you.
So we have already discussed, like, all the servers and like maintenance operation has to be taken care by us. And like it required a lot of configurations, and we need to take care of all the disaster recovery, high availability, scalability, everything has to be taken care by. And definitely, like, it depends, like, how many molecules you are setting up in the one private atom cloud. Depending on that, the cost may increase or may decrease, depend, like, it depends. Yeah, so we have complete 4 deployment options or 4 runtime options provided by the Boomi. So one is Boomi Atom Cloud, one is local atom, then molecule, then the private atom cloud. So these are the 4 options which is provided by Boomi for running your processes or for deploying your processes. Let me go with my API management capability. So Boomi has some kind of API management capability also in the place, right? So let me go with that quickly. So Boomi provide a API management which can manage the full API lifecycle, and which allow you to design the API, scale the API, you can secure the API. So like, so basically what happens like in Boomi APIM. So generally Boomi provide API gateways also that you can set up in the front of your atoms. Basically, it can be local atom, it can be public cloud atom, or it can be anything like, you can set up in the front of your any atom basically, right? So I will talk more about that in next slide. So what are the different architecture we can have for Boomi API management, right? So Boomi provide like, various plans where like, like rate limiting, port limiting, to control the traffic basically. It also provide a various security options where like, you can authenticate your authorized request using JWT and the basic authentication. Apart from that, like it also provides some kind of developer portal where you can go and discover the API, you can do the API catalogs and all those things. So generally, Boomi API gateway is not a managed service basically, right? You have to set up a Boomi API gateways on the local machine, like a molecule or like a local atom basically. It will be sitting on your own network basically. So you can set up a multiple instance of API gateways, and that can be clustered together to ensure the high availability, high performance, and the scalability. Boomi also provide a developer portal, which I already mentioned that for discovering the APIs and the publishing the APIs. So third party or any developer can discover your API, Yeah. So this is how a Boomi API gateway, this is how conceptual, diagram. So where like you have a Boomi API gateway, which is sitting behind your firewall. You will have a control plane in your atom sphere, but your API gateway will be sitting on in your own infrastructure, which provide API security, which provide API governance, which provide some kind of API plans for controlling the traffic. It also provide the authentication sources to authorize or to authenticate your request before it goes to the atom, right? So also you may have an application load balancer sitting in the front of in the front of your API gateway, right? And the client will send a request to the application load balancer. Application load balancer, you may attach a web application firewall, to block requests from the untrusted sources. The request will come, then the request will go to the API gateway. API gateway will take care of all these particular components, security, governance plans, and the authentication sources. If everything has been passed, then the request will move to the Boomi Atom. It can be a local, it can be molecule, it can be private atom cloud, it can be public atom cloud. You can have an API gateway in the front of any atoms basically. Then the Boomi Atom will execute the process, it will generate the response, and it will send back to the client. And like and then your API gateway will also get registered in your Boomi Atom Sphere. So you can manage your API gateway from the Boomi Atom Sphere, like starting, deleting, other log files. Those things can be downloaded from your Boomi Atom Sphere GUI. And this is how the infrastructure architecture looks like. So basically you have a firewall here, and like you have a Boomi Atom Sphere platform which is sitting in the cloud. Then you have a multiple gateway, those are clustered together, and like they are sharing the same memory. It can be SMB or it can be any NFS disk, right? It is sharing that. So both nodes are clustered, right? So there's a application load balancer in the front of both the gateway, and in the front of application load balancer there can be any web application firewall. The request will come to application load balancer, where request will be verified against your web application firewall, and it will send to the gateway. Gateway will ensure all this authentication. It will authorize and ensure that the request is according to API plans. If everything goes fine, then the request will move to the local atom or any other atoms, Boomi atoms basically. Other thing, like only the metadata will be moved from your corporate data center to the Boomi Atom Sphere platform in the secure way basically. Yeah, so that is that is the high level architecture of API management. Let me show that. Okay, so here I will go back to my integration part home. So setting up API gateway is simpler, but the defining the architecture is always complex part. You can go to the API management. So here you can simply create a gateway. It's very simple. So simply you can say add gateway, select the Windows, and it will just download the installer generate token. So same way we have installed your local atom basically. In same way you can install the gateway. In case if you want high availability, you want to set up this gateway in two different machines, and they have to be sharing the same data grid, and they need to be clustered together, right? And the second thing, you can set up the plans. So generally, if you are creating the plant, you can attach a various plant, like you can put the traffic control on your API. So you can put the control on your message size, like, on like rate limit, how many requests can come in 1 minute, and the quota limits. So those kind of things can be defined, and it can be attached to your API. Then comes to the authentication sources. So you can generally it support a few authentication sources like basic authentication and OAuth authentication. So Open ID Connect. So it support JWT authentication as well as the both basic authentication, right? Then so that is like high level walkthrough of your API management capability. Here I see a few kind of limitations, like so generally the infrastructures and everything has to be managed by you, like so you have to manage all your infrastructure. You have to take care of high availability network, storage, and fault tolerance, disaster recovery. It has to be taken care by you basically. Yeah, like API gateway is not a managed service, like you have to take care of everything. Yeah. So that is all about like Boomi API management capability and the deployment and runtime options. Yeah. Ivan, any questions?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. We have several questions which was not asked you previously, and if you don't mind, I'd like to understand about the Boomi licensing and about the SLA what Atom Cloud is provide to us.
Okay, so a Boomi is generally basically cost on the basis of number of connections. Basically, that is the one license strategy. Like like let's consider if you are connecting the one Salesforce system, right? So you may have to pay for one license. You are connecting other system, maybe have a second license, right? So it depends on the number of connections basically. So generally, Boomi suggests you have to reuse the connections. Don't try to create two connections for the same systems, right? So it will end up in paying the two licenses. It also, that is the one thing. Second, like it depend on like if you are going with the atom or the molecules, right? So depending on the license cost also changes basically, right? Apart from that, like for API gateways, it depend on like how many gateways you are setting up on your machine basically, right? So that will be the license cost for you basically, right? When it comes to SLA, like generally Boomi said it's 99.99% SLA, service layer. Basically service layer for this particular, they say 99.99%. If there is a less than 99.99%, there is some kind of calculation, so they pay you some kind of amount back basically on that particular. Generally, like it has been noticed, they provide 99.99% of SLA. Good,
thank you very much. And one more question. Basically, I was expecting this kind of question. Could you please compare Dell Boomi and MuleSoft, definitely based on your experience? So any features you believe will be better to do on Dell Boomi, or something can be done better on MuleSoft?
Yeah, see, I will tell you, when it comes to API management capability, right? So I will talk about the API management, because like it is one of the mostly used component. So MuleSoft API management is a completely managed service basically, right? And it provides more options, more out of box capabilities basically, like in terms of number of policies, like you have n number of policies in terms of monitoring. So if you see Boomi API management provide a few kind of monitoring basically, like average response time, what is the API trends, what is the some status failure codes, whereas Boomi MuleSoft API management provides more kind of analytics and more kind of statistics basically. Apart from that, Boomi MuleSoft API management is completely a managed service. Like you don't have to worry about scalability, performance, you don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure, whereas here you have to worry about the infrastructure. You have to take care of your infrastructure, network, storage. So that is the comparison for API management capability. When it comes to integrations, right? When it comes to like I think MuleSoft also provide more than like 350 or like around 350 connectors, and MuleSoft is also known as a unified platform, whereas Boomi is also provide, and like more than 250 connectors basically, right? So that can connect any SaaS application, databases, anything basically, right? So in terms of connector, it's good. When it comes to low code or no code, I think Boomi is generally say we are like, they are generally more low code basically, like generally we don't have to write code, right? But generally like that can be turn out to limitations sometime. Why I will say, because if you want to do some kind of like some kind of high level of business logic, like you have to write some complex business logic, right? So where like we will definitely require some kind of code basically. We may have to write some kind of Java classes. We may have to do the orchestration of the calls and all those things, right? So where I feel MuleSoft is bit stronger, but when it comes to low code, I feel Boomi is definitely a low code or no code basically as compared. Apart from that, MuleSoft completely support a Maven lifecycle management, and like it can generally the code can be moved to the external repository like GitHub, GitLab. It generally support all kind of SCM, whereas Boomi provided its own SCM. Basically it provides its own kind of repositories and like own kind of repository, own kind of check-in and check-out process. Generally there's a no checkout process. Generally it automatically maintain all these revisions, histories and everything basically. Yeah. Apart from that, one of the other thing, like when it comes to some kind of assets, pre-built assets and everything, I think MuleSoft provide much more assets and all those things as compared to Boomi basically. I think when it comes to reusability, we can do something more reusability in MuleSoft as compared to Boomi. But yeah, it's not like that. But when it comes to licensing cost and all those things, right, I think Boomi might be a bit cheaper, correct?
Unfortunately, I can't comment it, simply don't know, but yes, thank you for your feedback. And one more question. Any automation suite provided from Boomi? I'm guessing we're speaking about EDA tool.
So you are saying like automation, like Boomi does provide any kind of automation tool. Right now, I don't think like they have any kind of automation tool, but we can do some kind of automation using the integrations only. But there's no specific automation tool provided by Boomi.
Yeah. So explanation. It was robotic automation.
No, I don't think Boomi doesn't provide any kind of RPA.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So generally Boomi provide like integration, API management, master data management, and there's a flows. So where like using flows, you can write, like orchestration of your business logics and all those things. Yeah.
Good. So looks like we fit in the timeline. That's really cool. And colleagues, in case if you have a question, please don't hesitate. You can post your question in our channel or under the video, or put the question to the this chat. We will gather this question and then we will be able to answer it, but it will be in our channel. Thank you very much, everyone. Jitendra, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
It was really interesting.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys.